Hi, girls, and welcome back to Self Care Black Girls, a podcast where we relax, sip tea, and chat about bettering ourselves as black girls. I'm BB, and I'll be helping guide you to make better choices in your daily lives. So, welcome back. Today's episode is another one the final one for this season, actually. The final one for volume 2, the senior advice. This week's senior advice is going to be about choosing classes. Now, I've kind of dibbled and dabbled on this topic a couple of times, very briefly in one of the previous episodes about in the senior advice series, and I was like, you know what? That's actually a really important thing to think about when you're making your schedule for your first year, and depending on your first year. So until you get like the gist of, campus life and whatnot, hopefully we will all be back on a regular school schedule by, you all's fall enrollment. But if not, just the gist of how it works in general, and some things that you should think about when creating your schedule. And if your school is like mine, you should be able to pull up a map of the campus and see where the different buildings are in relation to where you are living, unless you live off campus. But I'm rambling at this point. So let's get into it. So the first thing that you want to think about when choosing your first schedule, your freshman schedule, the first semester, the fall semester, is to think about your schedule outside of school. What I mean by that is, do you work? If you work, what does that schedule look like? Does your job also know that you're a college student? Because if they don't, let them know so they can, either adjust your schedule, or so you can know whether they don't care and you can quit or find a better job or something, because school comes first. Think about your personal life. If you don't work, but you have to frequent home for whatever reason, think about that. You might want some classes in the middle of the day, so that way if you are having a frequent home, you have all morning to get to campus, and you have the evening time to get home. So think about what your schedule looks like outside of school, and build a school schedule to either A, work around it, which would be ideal if it isn't too hectic, or B, set your school schedule so you can readjust your outside of school schedule and make something work. The next thing that you want to think about when creating your schedule is to ask around about the workload. You don't want to go into a major, or at this point you're still doing most of you will still be doing prereqs. So you don't want to go into, like, my school is very flexible about which classes you can take as a prereq for the most part, or for like the general ed classes. So you don't want to pick a gen ed class or a prereq that's going to be like heavy on the workload and it's going to cause you to stay up until 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning. You don't want that. It's your freshman year. You're just getting into the swing of things. You're still a baby. You don't want to have to deal with that your freshman year on campus, or your freshman year in general. So, while you're at orientation, ask around, because somebody's going to know somebody in that major, and they might be able to connect you with them so you can get an insight on what the workload is like in that specific class or that major. The next thing that you want to do is talk with your advisor about your options. So say, for instance, you do have a class that you end up signing up for, a class that is heavy on the workload, and you didn't know that prior to that, but you also don't know any other class that's going to cover the requirement that it does. Talk with your advisor. They're there for a reason. Talk with them and ask them what your other options are. Is there another option, or are you going to have to push through, or maybe you're going to have to save that class for another semester where your other classwork isn't as heavy. So just talk with them, ask them if you have another option. If not, what could you also do to fulfill that requirement? The next thing you want to talk about is to think ahead and think about what you want to accomplish while you're there. Do you want to have more free time to hang out and go places? Do you want to, knock out as much of your classwork and other requirements as possible? What is your intention while you're on campus? Think about what you want to do in the future. Do you want your senior year to be a breeze? If so, then you might want to pick up on the classes your freshman year. Do you not care if your senior year is heavy? If that's the case, then just make the schedule and it is what it is. Think about what you want in your future, and this will also help you prevent, if you think far enough into the future, it can also prevent you from taking any classes that you aren't going to need. Because the worst thing is to take a class and then after the class is over, years down the line, or maybe months even, depending on what year you take it, you realize you didn't need that class. And now you paid for a class that you didn't need. And that sucks. I've been there, done that, but it's fine. I got over it. At that point, there's nothing you can do. You took the class, so you can't ask for a refund, which, depending on your school, you probably won't get a refund for anyway. But, think ahead so you don't do anything like that, or, stuff like that. The next thing that you want to think about is to think about your mental health. And this kind of ties everything that I've previously mentioned together. You don't want to take on a buttload of classes that's heavy in workload and you not have a social life of some sort. This happened to me, when did this happen? Last fall, the fall of 2019. I started the semester out with, I believe, 6 classes, and I ended with 4, I believe, because the other 2, one, I don't think the professor liked me, honestly, because I apparently was the only one struggling in that class, and she didn't bother to help me. I asked, didn't get any response, so, and then another class, it was just, what he was asking for was not reasonable when I looked at all my other assignments in my other classes, so I had to let that one go. But it was fine because, like I mentioned before, I talked with my advisor and I looked at my other options that I had to meet the requirement that both of those classes did. So you have to think about your mental health. You need a social life. You need a life in general. Don't sacrifice your mental stability for a class that is going to end within like 3 to 4 months, depending on when your school ends classes. So don't do it. I've been there, I've done that, I'm still recovering. Don't do it. Don't do it. If it's causing you stress in the beginning of the semester, it's going to get worse as the time progresses, because what class starts hard like that? Think about it. Like I said, don't sacrifice your mental stability for a class. It's not worth it. And the final tip that I have for you all, and this kind of goes back to asking around about the workload. Do research on your major, on classes that are similar to the ones that you've been thinking about taking. Don't jump into a class that is going to have you traveling halfway across the world to do an assignment. You know what I'm saying? If you're only getting bad reviews about a class, don't take it. Do your research. I know Rate My Professor gets a terrible rap, but I personally have been in college. This is my 3rd and final year in my undergrad, and Rate My Professor has yet to lie to me. And it might just be my school, but I have yet to get a false sense of a professor from Rate My Professor. So even if you don't fully trust it, you still might want to go on there and look over, you see what everybody's saying, see what classes they took, to get a gist of what you're getting into. And as far as the course material is concerned, do some research on what is to be expected in that class. For example, you might not want to join or register for a class that has you writing a full 5-page paper every week, and then you also have classes that are heavy in work as well. You don't want to strain yourself. So do your research, ask around campus, ask advisors, ask the professors that teach it. Most professors are pretty lenient when it comes to, getting an idea of what their course is like. Some of the advisors have talked with them. Of course, they've talked with students who've previously taken it. So, do your research, YouTube, ask around campus, things like that. Your campus has resources. You're paying for them. Utilize them. So that's all that I have for you all this week. I hope you all, if any of you are going into college, I hope you all really stop and consider some of these things that I went over in this episode, because they really will make your transition into college a lot easier than if you were to go in there with absolutely no idea what you were doing or what was going to be happening. So if you know somebody that's going into college, or if you are somebody that's going into college, share this with them. Make sure you listen to it, and get this out there. And also refer them to my other senior advice episodes. I will be back in the next volume with some more episodes, because you guys are going to be graduating. I'm going to be graduating. So, of course, I have more tips and tricks and things that you can, that will help you prepare for college. But thank you all so much for listening, and I will see you all next week. Bye. Thank you all so much for listening this week. If you have any questions, comments, stories, or tips, and you'd like to share them with me, email me at selfcarebgirl@gmail.com. If you'd like to help other people find this podcast, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes to help get the word out. If iTunes isn't your preferred method of listening, you can also find us on Spotify, YouTube, and many more streaming platforms. If you'd like to interact with other listeners or keep up with announcements and giveaways, you should follow me on Instagram at Selfcare Black Girls. Join the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/selfcareblackgirls, or follow me on Twitter at selfcarebgirls. Don't forget, you all still have the option to donate by either visiting my Patreon link or my merch link in the bio of my Instagram and Twitter. Thank you all so much for listening, and I will see you all next week. Bye.